My name is Kai Mikatite, and I'm a second year here at the university studying marketing at the David Eccles School of Business. I'm very excited for this opportunity to be a part of the sales club, but even more excited to introduce our speaker today, Shawn Adamson. Shawn is the Senior Vice President of Comcast Business for Comcast Cable's Northeast Division. In this role, Shawn leads all aspects of Comcast businesses across 14 northeastern states from Maine through Virginia and the District of Columbia. She is a member of the Eccles Advisory Board and has received many awards and recognitions, including being named on one of Utah Business Magazine's 30 Women to Watch, Trustee of the Year from Utah's technology industry, and Technology Trailblazer from the Women Technology Awards. Please join me in welcoming Shawn Adamson.
Thanks, Kai. Thanks, I appreciate that. Oh, that's right. What am I taking the mic for? Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm excited to be here today. As Kai explained, my name is Shawn Adamson. On this very snowy day here in Salt Lake City, definitely feel like winter's coming, right? I feel like I'm ready for the Night's Watch. I don't know if I've seen a Game of Thrones fan. I'm ready for winter to be coming. But as Kai mentioned, I do work for Comcast Business. I lead a division, and I live in Boston today. So any other New Englanders in that, maybe? One, there we go, Boston. All right, there we go. Awesome. So so I did travel here from Boston, and I don't get to come to the campus very often anymore. It's such an amazing, has a special place in my heart, the University of Utah and the campus here. My daughter's here as a global business scholar and an entrepreneurship major, Kennedy, so I'm here to embarrass her too. But I don't get to come here physically, but I have a cool way to visit virtually. So at my home, I have a gym, and I have an iFit treadmill workout that I do that starts at President's Circle at the bottom and goes all the way to Fort Douglas. And Kennedy used to do that walk to her dorm. And I'm telling you, it is a 6 incline on the treadmill, just so you know. Like, I have new respect for everybody who does that trek during the day, because it's a beautiful walk, but gets your heart pumping in the morning. So I'm here to talk a little bit about this concept of the power of sales skills just in life and your career, and talk a little bit about your career. Because I think as you're here learning and you're business students, the more exposure you can get to what it will be like in a business environment and what those key skills will be for you, and your opportunity to learn them while you're here. So when we talk about sales, so this is, I'll throw this up here. So some of my team at my company, when I was showing them what I was going to talk about, they said, office is too old for that crowd. So I don't know if office is too old for that crowd, but when I say something like sales, and I talk about sales skills, this is like what came to mind for me as like a stereotypical example. But can anybody throw anything else out that's like, you know, a typical, what comes to mind when you think about sales or selling? Yeah, right there.
Door-to-door people?
Door-to-door people, right? Pest control, I don't know what they're selling door-to-door, right? Yeah, that comes to mind. What else? Right here, yeah. Real estate, yeah, real estate professionals. Those are sales professionals as well. Yeah.
Dealerships, cars.
Cars, yep, selling cars. I just bought one myself. From an excellent salesperson. Buyer's remorse. There you go. So that's an interesting one. And I did want to mention, so I forgot to mention earlier, so I do want this to be interactive, so thank you for being interactive. Kennedy here has some lovely gift cards she'll just be randomly giving out to those of you that do interact. We'll have some Q&A at the end too. So she's got some Starbucks, some Panda Express, I heard is popular, Subway, and some other yummy stuff in there. So definitely engage from the audience. The presentation will go better. So the point of my talk is that while we may have these different images of cells, this is a very real-world example, and this is the most common implementation of sales. This is an internal seller, that I'm talking about here. So the point is, no matter what your day job is or what profession you take, there is some aspect of selling in every single part of your profession. So let's say that you're proposing a new idea or innovation for your company. You need to get buy-in for that. You either need to get your teammates on board, perhaps you have to get investment from the company, other aspects of that. So the most common form of actual sales skills and where people will use them the most, whether you're an external seller at your profession or you're not in sales at all, will be internal selling. And that's what I wanted to kind of convey as we have our discussion today, which is these are critical skills you'll want to learn and experience and pick up to be successful regardless of your career choice. And this is an example, in our company, I work for a large company, as I mentioned, Comcast Business, part of Comcast Cable, but as you look at the various roles, so let's say, again, you're not seeking, your career goals don't involve a sales position, and that's fine. But if you're a CEO, like a CEO of a publicly traded company like I'm part of, you're out there, you're selling your company to shareholders, you're seeking investment, You want to talk about what you're able to bring to the market. If you're in senior leadership, you're trying to accomplish key business objectives. You're trying, again, to get funding. I'll talk about that probably a lot, but you're trying to get support and advocacy. So you are selling. You may be selling to your own CEO. You may be selling to the board. You'll need good skills to drive those initiatives to get that buy-in and support. If you're in middle management, it's an interesting kind of internal selling that you often do. You're often trying to get your frontline employees engaged, right? If anybody's read authors like Simon Sinek, he talks about this a lot. Good leaders can convey the why. Why are we after that business objective? Why are we trying to serve the customer? What are we trying to do? And they're trying to get that discretionary effort from their employees. And so the better you are at communicating your vision as a leader, or the vision of the organization, the more successful you'll be. And then frontline employees, as we talked about, you can have a sales role at some point in your career. You could have a sales role for your whole career. But I want to talk about, I think the most important skill, again, this internal selling for an individual employee, is selling their personal brand. And it's a concept of personal brand, who I am, what I do in the organization, and what my career journey is all about. And this is a picture of my own company, just kidding, but this is really every company. And as you start and you spend a career in business, what you'll learn about organizations, business organizations, is there are all these different departments, and they all kind of speak a different language, honestly. They use different acronyms. At our company, each acronym could mean 3 different things depending on which department you're talking to. So you really have to kind of translate that. And your success, and part of your success in your career, what will make you more successful. So let's say in this example, you're in the finance department, which almost looks like Germany, I'm not sure here. But you're very versed in your financial vernacular and that type of thing. But if you're going to be a great business partner to the operations team, you're going to have to seek to understand that operations team and be able to communicate effectively with them. And that's going to help elevate your career. So part of being successful in an organization, whatever role you're in, again, doesn't have to be sales, is the sales skills that we'll talk about here briefly, which are going to help you navigate this and essentially, let's call it, be the Rosetta Stone of your organization. And these are some of the skills we talk about. So when I talk about, what are the key sales skills, if you can Google top sales skills and you'll come up with a variety of things, but often you'll have these depicted. And I would argue they're career skills and they're life skills. So, relationship building is critical, in life, certainly in sales, and certainly for building a career and being part of a career journey. Active listening, like you're all doing hopefully right now, where you're actually engaged and seeking to understand the other person's point of view, or the organization that you're dealing with, or the customer, whether they're internal or external. A big part of sales is actually problem solving and critical thinking. If you think about it, especially in technology sales, I think, Abraham, you said you're a tech sales minor at that other university up north. But, but you're trying to solve, a customer's problem. In technology sales, you're meeting with CIOs, you're meeting with business partners, and you're seeking to understand what problems they have, and you're seeking to propose a solution. So all of that problem-solving skill comes about. And I would argue this is a really strong skill for your career as well. If you can become known, again, in that personal brand inside your company as a problem solver, as a good critical thinker, someone that, again, I'll go back to the finance example. Let's say you're a finance analyst, but operations is like, wow, they are a critical thinker. They are helping us solve a key problem with our supply chain or something else in that experience. That will help you in your personal brand. Negotiating is very important. Kennedy and I, she was driving me up here. We're just talking about this today. I was negotiating between a department, 2 departments. I'll just leave them nameless within my own organization. Kind of went with a split the difference, solve in the middle, often known as the win-win. Key to negotiating, it's an important part of my job and a lot of our leadership roles is, helping our departments work together. And then effective communication. Communication, we always talk about as almost the hardest thing to do in an organization and a career. And this is the point of it being effective. Did I hear the person through active listening? Am I understanding? Am I learning that vernacular of that marketing department I don't spend a lot of time in? And am I able to really communicate effectively? If I'm a leader, am I able to get my employees to understand the business objective and why it matters? Those types of things. So you can pause me at any point if there's questions, but we will have Q&A too. So, okay. So this is a study I found, reference point from LinkedIn, but other universities we don't need to talk about. But the study was interesting because it said 85% of your career success will come from soft skills and people skills. And I would argue sales skills fits right in that category. And it was interesting, the hard skills, the technical skills and knowledge, while important, are only 15% of your career success. And I dug into this study a little bit because I was really curious. The one role that they studied for this is engineering. It's not sales. So what they did for the study is they went and looked at successful engineers in an organization. They talked to the leaders of those engineers. They talked to other individuals of engineers that were rated highly effective. And they said, what makes this engineer highly effective? And what they found through all those interviews and the data they pulled is that soft skills, people skills, were mentioned 7 times as often as a technical skill as an engineer. So this is why it becomes so relevant, no matter what you're studying, no matter what your career plans are, to focus on some of these skills, take courses if they're available, shadow some people, to learn some of these skills, or get some sales experience, which will really help you. And this is taken from Indeed. So Indeed says, how you present yourself to your leadership team is the #1 key to getting promoted before your peers. And I read that at first and I was like, is that going to sound okay, promoted before your peers? Well, let's be real, like these opportunities are competitive. When you go into a company and you want to get into your first leadership role like I did, it's competitive. There's more than one candidate. How do you distinguish yourself? I just wanted to revise it. So I looked at this and thought, yeah, I think that's pretty right on. I would change it, if it were me, from how you present yourself to selling your personal brand to your leadership group is the #1 key to getting promoted before your peers. So how does that business think of you, and how do you help represent that brand? Are you known as a critical thinker? Are you known as a problem solver? Again, are you known as somebody who can execute? Are you known as somebody who can get along with other people, who can collaborate, who can understand those other departments? And how do you sell that and communicate? Because that is actually part of building a career and advancing your career and being successful. Somebody once told me, a great leader, he said, Shawn, he talked to me about personal brand, and he said, here's why this is important. He said, there will be conversations at times in a business, in a room, where you're not present. And people will talk about, maybe they'll talk about a new opportunity, like who do we think would be good for that? Or whatever the issue is. And he said, you need to have people in that audience or in that room that will represent you with your personal brand, that will understand you and say, hey, I know someone, what about Shawn, et cetera. And it's been very true for my career. So again, important part of bringing those sales skills together as you look at your career. And then I thought I'd just share a glimpse of the real world. So this is a little snapshot. It's one part of Comcast. Again, Comcast overall, we have over 100,000 teammates. We're a very large company at Comcast. This is a little snapshot of one division of that. And the things that I want to call out, and this talks about building your career and why it's important. For us, we believe in promoting internally. We want to develop our people. We want to provide career advancement. So we fill 85% of our leadership roles internally. We only hire outside applicants for those roles 15% of the time. So we bring teammates in to the company. We advance them. We develop them. We give them an opportunity. You'll see a couple of things. Like we looked at 2023. We had about 161 team members that got a lateral opportunity. I'll talk about that in a minute, but got an opportunity that wasn't a straight promotion up, but it was an opportunity to change departments. Maybe they were in finance, they wanted to learn operations. We gave them that opportunity, or vice versa. And then you can see kind of how advancement's happening in our company. So again, leadership roles are being filled the vast majority of the time with an internal candidate. In our business in 2023, we had about 17% of our leaders get advanced and move into a role. I would also be in that number, by the way. I was advanced into my current role in 2023. But when that happens, then it frees up a lot of promotion-generated like vacancies, and that's kind of how positions get filled. And then that next person that was a frontline teammate, whatever role they were in, they were a finance analyst, they were a sales rep, they get the opportunity to move up and advance their career too. So this is kind of what it looks like, just a glimpse in a business. And again, that's why it comes back to, if you're in a business like that, understanding personal brand, understanding some of those soft skills and sales skills, will help you. And I thought I'd share a little glimpse. I don't know how good this ladder is. Maybe I'm too old. The ladder's kind of long. Doesn't even actually technically have every role. But this has been, how I've gotten to my current role. And I just wanted to talk about it for a minute. So, in careers, and when you talk about career journeys, there's typically kind of 2 paths described. There's kind of this ladder or linear progression, which the early part of my career definitely resembled this, right? So I started as a software developer, believe it or not. And I advanced, I got my first leadership opportunity. Again, I think because I had a personal brand of being a problem solver. I took on some key projects for the company. I was seen as somebody that could collaborate, could communicate well. So I got my first leadership opportunity. I learned a lot in that role. And I moved my way up, and I was in a director of IT role when I got an interesting opportunity to do a total pivot and become a sales engineer for our company. It was the first time we'd had such a role. Basically, it was a technical role supporting our sales organization and helping them present those solutions, those technical solutions to customers. And I was interested in it because it was something different. So at that point, my career had been very ladder-based, very linear. And then I took what I would describe on the right here, which is a lattice approach, took a different pivot and went over as a sales engineer and discovered a lot of things about it. I didn't know anything about sales. To be honest, I didn't know anything about my company and how we made money at that stage, running IT. I didn't know what our customers were like. I'd never done any external engagement. I was super scared of it. I remember going to the first time we met with an actual external customer, because you're meeting with a stranger and you're talking to them about things. But luckily for me, there was a great salesperson with me and they knew how to do that. So I didn't, it went great. And what I discovered is I loved the engagement more than I really had appreciated. I loved going to other companies, not just my own company, and understanding their technology. And then easy for me, they were actually people from IT. So I could speak a common language of IT. I could understand and collaborate with the customers. So I did that pivot. It led to some other roles. I did stay in the sales organization, much to my own surprise. And then the company came to me and actually offered me a sales leadership role. And I initially said no because I was afraid of that sales leadership role. It seemed super scary. I didn't think I knew what I was doing. But I had a great mentor who gave me great advice, who said, it doesn't matter, you don't have to be successful at the role. You should take the challenge because the company thinks that they have it in, you have it within yourself to be successful. It's a great opportunity for you to learn. You're going to learn one way or the other. And I think that fear of failure sometimes is a good thing to learn too, to overcome. So I went into that role pretty sure I would be fired because I just thought I'd be terrible at it. But I went into it, I embraced the challenge, I guess, and the risk and the concern. And to my surprise, again, I did not get fired. I learned a lot about it. I learned from other sales managers. They were kind to me, taught me things that I didn't know or whatever. Discovered I actually liked that quite a bit. And I really learned some strong sales skills that we've been talking about. And then my career's taken different roles. I've been in big operations roles. I've leveraged those same sales skills as I was describing to you in those operations roles. I needed investment so we could drive, so we could support our customers. I needed a liaison with other departments for my own success, for the success of my department. And so all those skills kind of build, and I think it's helped me elevate my career. So that's a little view on my career. And then this is just a quote from Forbes about the whole concept of like personal brand and just what we're kind of demonstrating that, you build your brand as your career develops. And how successfully I believe you can kind of sell and market that brand will what can help accelerate, your career and drive your career journey. Okay, so it's time for questions now and gift cards. Oh, over here again.
So can you describe an example of a time someone has stood out when selling you their personal brand?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of examples. I think what it comes down to a lot of times is like there's a difficult project or a difficult job, right? So let's say there's a business problem or just an extra project. Like you just need somebody to do an extra project, right? So some people have what I call alligator arms, right? So let's say you meet with a group of people and you're like, oh, we have this big problem. We've got to have, honestly, we need somebody to work late or we need somebody to maybe work on Saturday because we've got to get through this. And you kind of get this like, they have alligator. They're kind of, oh, that's not me. You know what I mean? And the person that stands out with part of that is the person that goes, you know what? I'll do it. You know what? I can lean in there. I'll help. So it's kind of, it's like above and beyond a little bit, I think. So that's one way. When they're selling their personal brand, it's, almost like an elevator pitch for what they do. So they may say to me, hey, I am a problem solver. I'm really good at this. I could do this. Or I have really good people skills. I'd be happy to go over and interface with operations, and represent the team. Or I'm happy to step in and lead this project or whatever. But I often say, and we have a lot of interns. We have a pretty robust internship program at Comcast. And I get the opportunity to meet with them. And they usually ask, what are some of the keys or success, for my career? And I said, step in and solve problems that exist that nobody else is doing. And it could be simple. And this is going to be like an antiquated one. But I once loved this guy. We had this printer, out of paper. And other people would walk by and just go, oh, it's out of printer. And we got a lot of other printers. So they just go, it's out of paper. They'd go to another printer. And this intern went over and said, oh, it's out of paper. And he looked and he found paper. And he put it in the machine. And he got the machine working for everybody else. Like that's the kind of little things that stand out, like just be that person that puts paper in the printer, and then talk about I'm a problem solver. I just solved that problem with the printer, I don't know if that's a helpful example.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you.
Definitely have a gift card over there, Kennedy. Okay.
So I consider myself a very passive person, and I hear a lot that in sales you have to be kind of aggressive, grab that sale, be competitive. So what's your advice for the passive people around us that want to be in a successful sales role?
So it may surprise you, I'm a natural introvert. True story. really afraid to talk to people. It's why I was in IT, right? IT is a comfortable place if you're afraid to talk to people, right? They only talk to you if they have an IT problem usually, and you're the expert, so it's kind of easy. So I would say, I think it's a fallacy to think you have to be aggressive to be successful in sales. I don't think customers actually like that. I think customers, and think about it, you're a customer. So somebody gave the car buying experience. When you're buying a car, what do you want that experience to be like? Do you want them to listen to you and understand what you're trying to do, or any other product, right? I mean, you want them to listen to you, right, and meet your needs and whatever else. So I think if you can be a great active listener and really hear them and display empathy for any problem or situation they're trying to solve and provide that solution, I think that's what matters more. I don't think it's about aggressiveness. I do think you have to kind of put yourself out there sometimes. So, one of the things I used to be terrified of public speaking. The only way I knew how to get over that was force myself to do it. And do it really badly at first. Maybe you guys will tell me later and I'm getting a little better, but just force yourself to do things that are uncomfortable. That's probably the best career advice I've ever gotten, which nobody asked that question yet, but is get outside your comfort zone. Sure. If you really want to challenge yourself and kind of learn. But I think some of the best salespeople I've ever worked with are the quiet ones, because they're the deep thinkers, they're listening well, and then when they speak, it's well thought out, right? So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, right back here.
What advice do you have for new salespeople going into a meeting with someone that's very closed off and cold? How would you recommend building trust and relationships in that type of setting?
So this is a customer that's maybe very cold, or somebody you're selling to that's very cold. I find the easiest way is ask them about their business. If it's a business, right? I'm going to use the business example. Ask them about their business. Even the most introverted, cold people usually have a passion for where they're working, almost always, and they want to talk about it. So, simple questions like, I was reading about this in your business, I'm curious about it. Or, who are your customers and how do you reach them? And, some of those most engaging conversations, I find customers will talk a lot if I'm asking about their business. I think it's the same about individuals, right? When you're selling or you're working with an individual and maybe they're a little standoffish or something, do they have a family? What are their hobbies? What do they like to do? If you start to ask some questions and you're authentic about it in a way that you genuinely are curious and want to know, then I think people open up, right? That's kind of the thing. Get them talking about themselves or get them talking about their business. I found a lot of CIOs will talk all day about their business, and what their interesting things are. One of the best questions I like to ask CIOs is I like to say, what are the executives of your business asking you for that you have to say no to? What are you not able to do for them, from a technology standpoint? And they'll tell you all kinds of problems. And then, great, because we have solutions to some of those problems. How can we solve that? So I think the key is to get them talking. I don't think it's about, we used to call it kind of show up and throw up, which maybe is a bad thing to say here, but it's kind of this people show up and they're just like, hey, I'm Bob and I'm here to tell you this and I'm here to, is anybody, that's some of the negative experiences probably people have had where they had buyer's remorse or a negative experience, right? Is like, Bob, I don't really care about you. I'm just here to buy a car, or whatever it is, right? I want you to understand what I want. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Okay. Definitely a gift card winner over there. Yes.
So, with your graph that you showed of your career journey, was that all at Comcast?
It was not. So I started right here in Salt Lake City with a startup company. We had a name ITC. It meant, I don't know, ITC, it was an acronym. But it was a very small company. It got bought by another company called NextLink. That company went through a lot of merger and acquisition activity and ultimately became a company called XO Communications. That was the last company I worked at. I worked my way up, through companies that I guess acquired, merged, and became bigger to a vice president role with that organization. When I came to Comcast, I came in as a vice president, hired from their competition essentially.
Yeah, so that was actually kind of in line with the question.
Okay.
In the job market right now, it's
Yeah.
very common to flip switch
Yeah.
companies, switch positions,
Yeah.
less than 12 months
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
As you're navigating different sales positions and different things like that, when do you feel like it's the right time to move, or how do you make that decision on when it's time to switch directions or switch companies?
I would say be cautious of making jumps as early as 12 months, right? Most of the time it takes you 12 months to really master a job anyway, right? And to really kind of prove your value. So when I first went to that first role, to be transparent, at ITC, I felt like it was a really low paying job, right? It was like IT specialist or something. Anyway, I had other opportunities and I contemplated leaving. I got great advice again from somebody that told me, hey, you're just out of school, you are essentially being paid to learn. So instead of paying tuition, they're paying you. Take advantage of learning and stay with it. I wouldn't have known that a year later I'd be in a leadership role with that company had I left, right? And then when we got bought, I was concerned too, and I thought maybe that would be time to leave. But then there were other opportunities. So I think the answer I would say is be a little patient, first of all. I know a lot of examples of people saying the grass is greener and it's not really greener, like they jump too quick. My career, I've been pretty patient and I've stayed with organizations. I think you want to know, is the organization growing? Does it develop its people? Is there opportunity for me? Am I being challenged? When I look to change roles, I think in my career I've changed roles probably at an average of like 30 months per role, is when I need new challenge. I want to learn new things. I feel like maybe not that I've mastered it, but I've figured out a lot of things with that job and I want to learn new things. And so I think that's the right approach. I think if I go back to sales, a lot of times, the salespeople that I work with, their earnings go from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 if they stay in the same role, because they become better and better at it, and they have to be patient with it. So I think it's about the organization you're with. Pick organizations that have growth potential or are growing. Pick organizations that believe in developing their people, and will give you those opportunities to grow and advance. And the benefit, and I've worked at both. I've worked at startups and I've worked at large companies. Benefit of startups is you get to wear a lot of hats and get a lot of experience fast, maybe for lower pay, just going to say. A benefit of bigger companies is if you're known and you develop a personal brand, you can go do different things at that company. You don't have to always be a finance analyst. If you can, if you want to. You don't always have to be a marketing specialist. They'll take risk on you, and you can advance through the company by virtue of your personal brand. That's hard to do externally. If you're leaving a company as a marketing specialist, it's hard to go get hired as a finance analyst at some other company because they don't know you, right? Okay. Oh, right here, Natalie. You have a friend hand raising for you. That's nice.
Can you tell me what are some habits that you've seen top performers have mastered in sales?
So the communication skills that we've talked about, that ability to really listen, I think, effectively. I think one we didn't talk about is just pure grit, right? If you're going to be in sales, not everything goes incredibly well, like with any, job really. But, it's the age-old, out of 10 times that, 10 customers maybe that you're trying to work with, probably only 3 end up becoming a customer or saying yes. So grit and determination to know that it's okay that you didn't win on that opportunity or that customer just wasn't successful, because if you know kind of the stats, you have to kind of get through that. So I don't know if I'm answering that question right, but I do think grit and determination, like ability to deal with adversity, whatever that is, setbacks, and get through them and persevere, are often what set true, successful salespeople. If you talk to every salesperson that's maybe incredibly successful today, they'll tell you about failure, they'll tell you about difficulty, they'll tell you about really challenging circumstances. But they got through it because they were, they exercised kind of grit and perseverance and determination to kind of get through it. So I honestly think, and I think again, that applies to any career.
Do you have like a top 3 books or resources that you like?
Some of them are old. They're just too old, I think, for this audience or whatever. But but when I was your age, I read a book called Winning by Jack Welch, and I just loved it. There's a lot of competitive, elements of that. If I flip to more modern, I love Simon Sinek. I love Start With Why. I love Leaders Eat Last. A lot of his books are really good. I like Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book. You asked for top 3. I don't know if I can really rate them in a top 3. I have 1 minute left. I love Shawn Achor's books too. If you've read his books, The Happiness Advantage, I think, and the other one is Big Potential, I think, is the other one that's really good. So I read a lot of business books. It's hard to narrow it for me to the top 3. But thank you for the question, Madeline. One more question, and then she's cutting me off. The hardest sell that I ever made. The hardest sell that I ever made was probably myself. The hardest sell I think I ever made was go back to that startup company. I'm in the IT organization. I went into the company. There was an opening for the IT manager. I went into the company and said I could do the job. Thought I articulated, and they didn't laugh at me, but I felt like I was being laughed at almost by the leaders. They were kind of like, too young. They actually said that. Not enough experience. Haven't finished your degree yet. They had a host of reasons. And so I was pretty crushed and pretty disappointed. I thought about it that night. I got advice, from people I respected. I went back to the company, and I proposed that I do the job on an interim basis for no increased pay. So I basically said there's an offer they couldn't refuse, right? I said, I'll do this position while you look for someone to replace me. You don't have to pay me anything for doing it. I'll just do the work. So they said, sure. And then to my surprise, I think in amazement, I proved out, or they took forever to hire, or whatever the story was, or they got desperate. I don't know, you judge the story how you want. But I proved, I worked hard, I drove initiatives. And a couple months later, I put together a presentation, and I went back and sold to those same leaders of the company all the things I've been able to accomplish. I'd been able to get billing on time. I'd been able to increase server uptime. I'd been able to do some innovations for the sales department. And I put together my story, and I said, I can do this job. I've demonstrated I can do this job, and here's the value I've provided, and here's what I want to do and what I want to do for the company. And they agreed. And I got the job. So I think that was probably, honestly, the hardest example, just because I had to have confidence and belief in myself, and it was really hard because they kind of already told me no. Back to that grit and resilience, and but I took the approach of I know I can do it, and I'm going to prove it to them. So, well, thank you all. We're at time, but really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Shawn. This is her second year.
Okay.
One more round of applause for Shawn, everyone.